Tariel Garamovich Oniani was born in 1958 in Georgia, known in the criminal world by the nickname Taro. One of the leaders of the Kutaisi organized crime group. For offenses in 2009, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. In 2019, he was released. The last years finished in the famous prison Black Dolphin, was going to go to Turkey but did not have time and was moved to Spain, where he also sat in prison. He was released in 2021. Who is Taro? Little Tariel's father died in a mine. That's why he didn't want to be a miner. He didn't want to die like his father. Having grown up and reached the age of 17, the boy began to engage in theft and robbery and soon received his first sentence. Later, he was convicted 7 more times for extortion, drugs, carrying weapons, robbery. When and under what circumstances he became the owner of the thieves' crown is unknown. There is an opinion that he was crowned back in the 70s, and after some time he was recognized as one of the most influential lawmen. The thieves' hierarchy of the Soviet Union was very complicated to understand. The community of the elite of the underworld of those times was closed, and all issues there were solved in an extremely narrow circle where outsiders could not get in. Oniani's criminal path was impeccable, judging by thieves' notions. But, by the way, if not in the 70s, then at least in the 80s, the title of a thief-in-law in Georgia could already be bought. There are even known cases when the thieves' crown was valued in several Volga cars, and 18 to 20-year-old authorities who had never been in prison became thieves-in-law. Today, most of the thieves-in-law are from Georgia. If to believe the data of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, there are about 1,200 thieves-in-law, and among them 60% are Georgians. Also, the number of lawmen has increased significantly since the collapse of the USSR. It is not known how many people have bought themselves titles, but offensive nicknames are attached to such people, oranges or laurashniki. Tariel, as many experts claim, is not one of these, but a real thief in the law. In the late 80s, Taro led a Kutaisi group. In Moscow, they had unquestionable authority. But everything was spoiled by a conflict in Tulin prison, which is quite far from the capital, near Irkutsk. Then Vyacheslav Ivankov, Yaponchik, and Taro's close associate, Ilya Simonia, Maho, found themselves in the same prison together. What exactly happened between the two authoritative personalities? It is unclear, but it is considered the starting point of the conflict between Taro and other thieves in the law. Some say that at one of the meetings of thieves in the law, Yaponchik managed to get Simonia's crown removed. Then Ivankov was supported by many, among them Aslan Usoyan, known by the nickname Grandfather Keishan, and Sergei Boitsov, Fighter. Naturally, then Taro took it all personally and took strong offense. It is said that Tariel was so upset that he publicly insulted both Ivankov and Usoyan. So, when Yaponchik was released in 1991, Taro, worried for his life, left for Paris, Austria. David Sanikidze, the owner of the Orbi company, was killed in 1998 in Vienna, in the very center of the city. Eyewitnesses reported that an unknown person ran up to the businessman, who was walking along the street, and shot him several times. David was very famous in Vienna. Unofficially, he even called himself Shevardnadze's representative in Europe. He even tried to buy a batch of Glock pistols ostensibly to protect the president. Nevertheless, according to the dossier that investigators had, David was known as a criminal authority associated with Vyacheslav Ivankov. Sanikidze even said so himself in an interview with a newspaper. Ivankov is his friend. Then the Austrian police tried hard and found 3 suspects. They were Akaki Javakadze, son of singer Pata Burchuladze, and Taro's brother, Giorgi Oniani. Also, during the investigation and search in David's house, a document was found, a ruling of the French court on prosecution for drug trafficking of some Georgian citizens, among whom was Tariel Oniani. It turns out that Yaponchik's friend either collected a dossier on Taro or had something to do with drug trafficking in France, and there are also strong suspicions that the murder was carried out by Tariel. France. In 1994, Rafal Mikhaeli from Israel, where he had moved from Georgia, was detained in Antwerp. He had a parcel for Tariel Oniani, which he intended to send to Paris. The parcel contained forged Belgian passports in Tariel's name. After that, Taro was taken under the hood by the police. The French police found out the sphere of activity of the thief-in-law. Taro was engaged in racketeering, cigarette and vodka smuggling, visa and passport trading, controlled some banks and enterprises in the former Soviet Union. In addition, he was often involved in criminal disputes and transported illegal Iraqi oil products. Police tapped Taro's conversations and found out that he was behind the assassination attempt on Georgi Karkarashvili, the former Georgian defense minister. He was also involved in the hostage-taking. Law enforcers also established that Yaponchik and David Sanikidze had infuriated Taro by intercepting a large portion of money from a bank that had gone bankrupt. Spain. After France and his dealings with local law enforcers, Taro left for Spain. By the way, then criminal authorities from the republics of the former Soviet Union in Spain decreased. Allegedly to cope with these Spanish authorities helped Alexander Litvinenko, who 6 months later was poisoned with polonium in London. He passed information to the Spanish intelligence services for a fee. In general, it was thanks to Litvinenko that numerous searches were carried out in Spain. All documentation from Taro companies was seized. The thief-in-law himself could not be detained. Only his daughter Gvansa was placed in a home for minors. Numerous close associates of Taro were arrested: Vitaly Izgilov, Vitalik the Beast, Besica Liparteliani, and others. Tariel himself left for Moscow. Russia. In Moscow, Taro had many problems and squabbles, especially with Aslan Usoyan. Small conflicts became big and led to bloodshed. To top it all off, Ivankov returned to Russia from the US. In 2008, it was clear that there would be a big war between criminal clans, and the authorities decided to meet to discuss all the issues. Taro was also present, but Ded Kasan and Yaponchik were not, although they were invited. Then all the participants of the meeting were detained by law enforcers. Soon all were released, but this was the beginning of the war between the clans of Ded Kasan and Tariel Oniani. The confrontation took place both through the classical methods of physical elimination and on the legal front. Ded Kasan had the advantage, which was also joined by Vyacheslav Ivankov. In 2009, Taro was detained and placed in Matroskaya Tishina. It is believed that Taro was very lucky. The fact is that at a meeting of thieves, a paper was signed by 38 lawmen, among whom were Yaponchik, Ded Kasan, Shakroyang, and other authoritative personalities. The letter instructed to remove Taro to the pre-trial detention center. According to the official version, the paper was intercepted by the officers. It turned out that the thieves-in-law thought that an attempt had been made on Ivankov's life. It happened a little earlier, as a result of which Yaponchik was wounded and decided to sentence Taro to death. At the same time, law enforcers decided to publicly disclose the content of the letter with the signatures on TV. It turns out that the goal was partially achieved. Everyone learned about the sentence, but nobody touched Taro. In 2009, in the fall, just a few months after the first assassination attempt, Yaponchik was still killed. And in 2013, one of Taro's enemies, Ded Hassan, was killed and shot dead. Law enforcers believe that this was done at the behest of Tariel. It turns out that in this war, Taro won. His enemies are dead, and he was freed, is alive, and quite well.